You are overinvesting in your business. That is what we're going to be talking about today as someone who has admittedly overinvested in my business in the past, especially in the last few years. Just because I'm a money coach, I'm a financial expert, does not mean that I am immune to all the kind of financial behavior things. I can just recognize them a lot faster and put steps in place and ultimately help my clients to do the same as well. So today I want to talk about my experience over investing and then also give you some tips of basically when you should invest in your business and then maybe when you should not be investing in your business. So let me just talk about my situation with over investing in my business. I started this business. Well, actually, I started it a while, like ages ago. 2020 is when I first opened up an Instagram account and I started sharing financial education, like tips, basically. And it grew from there. This iteration of the business came after maternity leave. So maternity leave, I basically burned that old business down. It was mostly financial education. I had a low cost membership, but most of my income came from digital products and also brand collab. I was kind of like named a financial influencer. That's what that business was. But they put my job title as financial influencer, which makes me want to hurl a little bit. When I say like I started this business at the end of 2023, beginning of 2024, what I mean is this version of it. And that's an important caveat because I did come into this business with an audience. Now, granted, it was 10% of my audience, which was absolutely hilarious. So I had an account that had 25,000 followers on, and I basically did a post. I was like, hey, I did some Instagram stories. Like it lasted a couple of days, if not weeks, but still only 10% came over. So if you can't do maths, because don't worry, I can't either. 2,500 people. I had 25,000 followers. I started a new account and I invited people to come and join me. I was upfront about what this account was going to be. I was like, look, I'm now going to be a money coach. That meant that when I did officially start this business, so in the kind of December is when I closed down that account and started the account I have now. The website went live, everything like that. It only took 1 month to get my first client. And that is because I did have the audience. And then in February, I signed another client. But then after that, like June was mental. And by summer, I was fully booked. I had 19 live clients. I did have some free clients as well. So kind of like pro bono clients to help with testimonials and like to get experience in that. I had done one-off sessions with people. This is my first time having like a program that I was walking people through. So I had free clients, but I was taking on paid clients at the same time as well. So yeah, that meant by summer 2024, I was fully booked. Now, that was great. Obviously, my prices were quite low back then. I was a newbie to money coaching, and I also had quite extended payment plans. Now, my ideal client is always someone who has like a relatively low income. Like I have some high earners, but most of my clients are people that are, maybe taking home between £1,500 and like £2,500. The majority of what I see, I do have the odd client who takes home, 5K, but most are in that range. And so I know it's so difficult because I know your finances. I'm literally in your finances. I'm in your spreadsheet. So I know what you can and cannot afford. And obviously, yes, there's an element of like value perception there as well. And of course, I'm not going into people's pockets and telling them what they can and can't afford. I will give you if you wanted to chat about it, like I can absolutely give you a ballpark. But basically, I had really extended payment plans. So even though I was fully booked, I was making enough to get by. Like, don't get me wrong, but I was spending money at a rate in order to try and grow my business, but I wasn't necessarily at that point financially because even though, like I said, my business was fully booked. So it is difficult to talk about because I have this massive weight of, okay, but Emily, you're supposed to be the financial expert. You're supposed to be the one that's good with all of this. How can you get it wrong? And I just hold my hands up and go, hey, I'm human. I'm also figuring out this business stuff as I go. I came into this business with a financial education, with a really solid financial education and understanding of how finances worked. And I had a money system that was already working and that I had been using with people that were employed. And then I translated that to business owners and it worked really, really well. I can get my clients really great results. I can get myself really great results as long as it's that thing of therapists need therapists, right? Doctors need doctors. Money coaches need money coaches. Sometimes I do think maybe I should have a money coach. But yeah, just all that to say, just because I'm a money coach doesn't mean that I am perfect with my own money. But if anything, I can then use those reflections that I have on what I've done and why I've done it to help my clients as well. Anyway, I'm going on a side quest because I don't want to say the thing. Okay. I put loads of investments on a credit card. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with using credit. There's nothing wrong with using credit cards. What happened was I was putting this money on a credit card. I was making these investments because I was seeing my business grow. Okay. I went from January being a £500 month to December being £5,000. October, I think was my first £5,000. So it took 10 months to scale to 5K months. Until January this year, I then had consistent 5K months. So for over 12 months, 15 months, I had consistent 5K months. Okay. So I was feeling pretty confident that my business was going to grow. So in 2024, because I'd seen that growth in 10 months, I was right, okay, going into the next year, basing off the growth I've had, this is what I can expect. So I made these investments. I put them on a credit card because I wanted to maximize the amount that I was taking home in my business. That was a really big priority for me. And that kind of does come in, that comes into the reason why I got into trouble, but we'll talk about it. I was putting these investments on a credit card thinking, well, it's fine because my business is going to grow. And I had this plan, the plan was I could see, projections. This is the growth. This is what my overflow is going to be. And this is how I'm going to pay off this investment. So I was making the investment with the knowledge of how I'm going to pay it off. What happened in the entire of 2025 was I did not see the growth that I expected. I don't really like the word plateaued or stagnated. Really a good word, is there? But my income didn't really change. I think I had one good month. I mean, when we say good, we mean higher than average, don't we? But again, I was right, this is it. This is the tipping point. My income's going to increase, and then it didn't. And so it went back down to my lovely 5K months. And it's that thing of 5K on paper was always enough. But because I was making these investments, I now had this money to pay off. And I also had all these payment plans to other people, so that actually my cash flow was very tight. I was also then prioritizing my take-home pay. Well, this is kind of a thing about me, is that I care a lot about being able to provide. It's a really big thing for me. I think it is tied to some childhood financial trauma that we don't need to go into today, but it means a lot to me. I never want to feel like I'm not pulling my weight. And if anything, I want to go above. So that's what I did. I matched my partner's income and then very quickly just jumped it up again. And I was very proud. And I was, we were building savings within the household. But meanwhile, my business was just racking up this credit card debt because I wasn't prioritizing the cash flow in my business. I was prioritizing the cash flow into my personal life. what happened was there became a bit of a crossover, a bit of confusion around the debt because I'm a sole trader. So everything is mine. Basically, the credit cards are in my name. They're not like my business's, they are mine. And so I started using them for the odd personal thing that I wanted. Again, just kind of using the excuse of like, it'll be fine because I'll make more money. When I say it, I'm literally like, I fucking hate myself because this is what I preach. This is what I preach to people. Don't. Just don't. And I think I was telling myself it's okay because I've got this plan and like the business is going to grow. But the business growing was very much like a aspiration. I didn't necessarily have the numbers and the proof and the evidence to suggest that. I was kind of going, well, it grew this year, so I can grow it again. And like looking at other people like, well, they've done it, so I can do it. And I do still believe all those things. I still believe I can grow my business to where I want it to be. But I did not have the numbers or the data. I was not looking at leads and conversion rates and all the other aspects that come into growing a business. I was very laser focused on the money in some areas and then obviously not very laser focused / putting my head in the sand in other areas. It got to a point where I had this debt that I wasn't just able to say, well, it's business debt. And that's when it got really difficult for me. I had consumer debt in the past, and that's what I paid off in my kind of initial financial journey. And so I felt it felt really difficult to me because then I felt like I wasn't able to pay it off because it was so mashed together. It put a massive weight on me. It was like this massive stress. I hated it. I was crying a lot. Like I would snappy because I felt bad that I'd gotten into this position where I had this debt, and the business debt is like almost like my head almost like writes it off, which is, something we worked on. But the fact that I then had this consumer debt and I was like, well, I don't know how much of this is consumer and how much of this is, I just know I let it go a bit too far. And so I was very fortunate in that I spoke to my partner about it and we decided to use savings to pay off the debt so I wouldn't have to worry about it anymore and kind of net it out that way. But I still had some business debt and still to this day have some business debt. And that is not something that I necessarily, like I said, like, did I overinvest? Yes. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what I did and what you should do and what I'm doing going forwards. Consumer debt I don't use debt now for anything to do with me personally. I'm now paying myself less from the business so that the business can grow some reserves. And then with that business reserves, I'm going to start paying off the debt in lump sums. So the debt is there, it's manageable. And I've gone into this year being very intentional. And I've gone into this year with the notes that I'm now showing the video, but that I'm going to talk to you about for the remainder of this episode. So basically, let's start with what not to do. Let's start with when you should not invest in your business. The first one's really hard. It's really, really hard. And this is still something I struggle with to this day, and that's shiny object syndrome. Any other ADHD girlies out there, we're basically magpies. I'm literally like, I love sales, right? I love talking about sales. I love selling. The downside of that is I love being sold to, and I'm a fucking sucker. I'm like, that sounds great, but I don't need it. But I'm like, that sounds great. And I can see how that would help me because in your marketing, in your sales strategy, in your messaging, you obviously are talking to this is how it's going to help you. And so you should. But as someone with shiny object syndrome, I'm then going, yeah, and I'm justifying it for myself. That's not your responsibility. By the way, I will always say this, like there are people out there who don't like selling because they don't want to feel like they are ultimately like convincing or manipulating someone into buying something. No. You were giving me all the information I needed to make that decision. I'm the grown-ass adult. Okay, I'm the grown-ass adult. I'm the one who got to make those decisions, and I decided to purchase when I didn't necessarily need those things. Okay? never on you, the person selling. It's always on the person buying. It's not your responsibility to handhold's the wrong word, because I do think you can have really intentional conversations with people who want to buy your things and be really honest about whether or not it's right for them. But ultimately, it's that person that buys the thing. And I will say I very rarely have conversations with people about like, oh, should I buy this thing? Like, I just do it. And then I'm like, afterwards, I'm like, oh, I didn't really need that. Here we are. We live and we learn. So no shiny objects this year already so many times. There've been like fantastic emails in my inbox and like adverts for things. And I'll be like, oh, this looks so good. This looks so good. And I can see how it will help me. And I literally have to be like, no, you don't need it. I literally have to have a word with myself. Like, no, you don't need it. Like, delete that email. Delete it. Okay? You don't need it. And I have to be really on it now. But I think, again, it's that thing of like, because I made the mistakes, I now have the awareness to be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do differently. And it is just being like a little bit more discerning of like, do I actually need this? Is this something that is actually going to help me get to that next level? Or is it just, Emily, you already have the business strategy of how you're going to get there. It's just going to take some time. Let it take time. Okay, the second thing is aspirational purchases. And this is when you are looking at the person who is selling the thing and they have the business, the lifestyle, the money, whatever it is, they have what you want. And so you buy into this person and you buy into the aspiration of being like this person and having this person's business, money, lifestyle situation, whatever it might be. But you ultimately cannot pay to be that person. And we see this a lot. I see this a lot with like business coaches, unfortunately, not all business coaches, but I see this mostly with business coaches where it's almost like, these are the things that I've done. And again, I know it's part of that messaging of speaking to the result or speaking to the desire that your audience has. But again, you have to be the discerning of, okay, but this person's in a different niche to me. This person's got a different audience size to me. This person has a partner with a high paid job. This person, and these things matter, okay? Because you might be like, the person, they have a high paid job, but they're making lots of money, so it doesn't really matter. You don't know that if they're paying themselves a lot of money, you just know they're making a lot of money. They might not be paying themselves a lot of money. They might actually have to just keep their money in their business. And their partner is basically just like funding the household, the lifestyle, whatever it is. And we don't know. We don't know what people's situations are behind closed doors. I bet a lot of you maybe didn't know that I had debt. I'm pretty open that I have some debt. I'm not anti-debt at all, but you didn't know I had what I call problem debt because I felt like it was too much. It got on top of me. So yes, it's that thing of the aspiration, just thinking about what is it about them that I really like? What is it about their result that I really want? Can you pinpoint what it is? Now, I'm going to say this, and this is what I'm going to say a lot of, but there's more than enoughness. Everyone wants more money and more leads, more sales, more revenue, okay? Because we see that more money will solve my problems. Like, if I have more money, if I have more money, I can pay off the debt. If I have more money, I can build savings. If I have more money, blah, 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 blah. But if you're not actually building the structure and the system and the plan to actually utilize that money, it will go out just as fast. Because you usually, in business, we have to spend money to make money. Okay, so ads, we invest in programs, coaches, all these things. We spend money to make money. We make the money, but now our expenses have gone up because we've had to spend money to make the money. So we're going to keep spending at this level. And so it becomes this entire thing where we're like, no, I need more money. I need more money, more money, more money. You know, it's why there are multiple six-figure business owners. I'm sure there are millionaire business owners who are basically taking home nothing. And I know that there are because I've been in their numbers. Not the millionaire ones, but the multi-six-figure ones. I've been in their numbers. They've been my clients. Okay, that's aspirational. Are you buying it just because you aspire to be like the person who's running it, rather than, and we'll talk about the reasons why you should invest in affordability. Now, this is what got me, okay? Because I was like, it's fine because I can afford it right now. But that was, or like, oh, I can afford it because I can put it on the credit card and then like the credit card payments and like it'll be fine. from now on, it's very, very straightforward. If I cannot afford it, is it like in my cash flow? It's not happening. And I do think that's a good rule of thumb to live by. And then, you know, people do like paying for bonuses, which again, no shame, you need the cash flow. I want the bonus, so I'll just pay in full on the credit card and then pay it off. Won't be like that. I'm like, oh, didn't. We live and we learn. So yeah, affordability. Only buy something if you're like, yes, and you are certain on the numbers. And obviously this is difficult for most people because I think a lot of people don't actually know what their numbers are, or they're using the wrong number to make these decisions. They're either using their revenue to work it out, they're using their profit to work it out, or they're using how much is in their bank account. All three of those answers are wrong, by the way. That is not how we decide whether or not we can afford something in business. It's actually what I call overflow. And this is that number of like, after you paid yourself, after you paid your tax, after you've contributed to your future, what is left now? Because your financial priorities always come first. And yes, there will be some cases where you're like, do you know what? This is something I really need to invest in. And so I'm going to tweak some other things in my business, such as reduce other expenses, reduce take-home pay, X, Y, Z. You can pull other levers, of course you can. But I would say as a general rule of thumb, if you're like, okay, this isn't a shiny object. I'm not buying this because I aspire to be like the person who's running it. I genuinely need it, but I'm worried about affordability. If that is the final hurdle, that is when you can think about payment plans. You can reach out to the person who's running it and ask about extended payment plans, or you can start thinking about other ways of affordability, such as borrowing, so debt and things like that. The last thing on the what not to do, and again, hold my hand over that I am not innocent to this, desperation purchasing. This is the thing. Like, this is the thing that's going to change everything. This is the investment I need. And again, I think it's because of the messaging and the marketing and, you know, big up the people because you're great at marketing. But as someone who, when finances can feel tight, and this is more so like, remember I said I was in that stage like where I felt the stress, I felt financial stress. Like in that financial stress is scarcity, and when you're in scarcity, you're in survival mode. And so what was happening in that moment is my brain was like, well, go, gotta make some money. You gotta fix this. So anything that comes at me that has the messaging and the marketing that is going to speak to that fear that I have in that moment, and because I'm under financial stress and I'm in survival mode, my brain's thinking, how can I fix this situation? It's just gonna go for whatever it can grab, basically. And so it's gonna grab things. And you can normally tell this because you will be, you're buying it from a place of this has to work, but also like almost like this is the thing, like this is it. And I want you to, sometimes it's really hard to catch yourself in this, but I want you to think about if you were having to tell your partner about this, if you were having to explain to your partner like why you were going to buy it. And now I'm not someone, obviously, if you have to talk to your partner about things, part of around money, part of me is like always then to make sure that you have financial independence. But I actually do have a client who, she came to me and asked me questions, and she was like, right, I'm going to go away and talk to my partner. And she was like, oh, FYI, it's not because my partner like yes or no's things. It's basically because she knows that she's had similar kind of financial behaviors to me in the past and recognizes that she can get sucked in by the marketing. So she goes, do you know what? Now I have a conversation with my partner and kind of talk it through. And if he thinks it's not that he can say, he didn't really say yes or no, it's more like a sounding board. And I love that. I think it's actually something I'm going to implement this year, just because I think if you find yourself saying the thing like this is it, this is the thing that changes everything. It's just recognizing, is it because you genuinely have, and I'll more now go into when to invest in something, but have you clearly and obviously been able to find something that you need in order to grow this business? Like there's an obvious gap in your skill set, in your repertoire, in your like resources. Like there is a genuine gap that is directly tied to growth? Or is it shiny object syndrome and you're just kind of it will be a combination of the aspiration with this desperation. If there is, there will be times where you look at something and you'll be like, I have identified the clear and obvious gap that I need to move this business along. Like, I'm really confident that this is the clear and obvious gap, and you can back that up with data, and you're looking at something, and then of course, you're going to be like, okay, this is it. Like, this is the thing that I need because this answers that really specific answer to that problem. But if you don't have that really clear identity, and it can't be just, I need to make more money. It cannot be. That is not a problem, okay? That is not a problem. That is the symptom of a problem. Needing more money is a symptom of a problem. The problem is, do you have enough leads? Can you actually sell? Can you close a sales call? Like, the sales skills, essentially, and audience growth and marketing, everything that goes into a business, okay? You cannot just focus on making more money because yeah, great, you might, but like I've said, you just get stuck in the cycle of then needing to make more money. Whereas if you have this clear, identified gap that you're like, right, this is the thing. Like, maybe you've looked at your data and you're like, okay, it's my conversions. I can get eyes. I've got the audience size. I've got eyes. Maybe clicks are good, but when they get to the sales page, that's when they're falling off. Okay, that's a really clear, identified gap that you can now go and fix. Okay, people get to my sales page and then they drop off. Great. I need to go invest in someone who can help me with my sales page. Right? So that's what I'm talking about. It cannot be, I just need to make more money. And so you go find the next business coach that flaunts a shiny number at you. Again, no shame because I've been there. The second reason why, when it is okay to invest and it's not a shiny object, is when you need to increase capacity when you are in demand. Okay, that's the caveat here, because I've done it where I go, okay, I'm going to grow this business. In order to do that, I need to be able to take on more clients. I need to hire, a VA, an OBM, whoever it might be, so that I have more space to take on more clients. What I should have done is, maybe even with my first year, when I got to that point where I had 19 clients, when the evidence is there that you are in demand, yes, and you want to scale, you want to increase your income. You're not like some people. A lot of my clients, because we work out what their enough number is, they will get to a point and they're like, I'm really happy here. I'm just like, I'm cool. We don't need to stress of scaling. Maybe one day in the future, but right now this is fine. There will be other clients who are like, okay, I'm at capacity. I want to make more money. How can I take on more clients? Okay, I need to hire. Okay, so there will be different things for different people. So yeah, generally increasing capacity when you are in demand, not before you are in demand, not when you are expecting demand, when you are in demand. And I know that can be difficult because you'll be like, but Emily, then I'll be too busy to actually help the hire. At this point, if you are not in demand right now, this is when you document things. This is when you go, okay, when I'm onboarding a client, this is what I do. When I'm doing whatever it might be, this is what I do. And you can just transcribe it to your phone or whatever, just something so that you can, when you are in demand, you don't have that much time, you can hire someone and go here are all the SOPs, but this is how I do things. This is the document that I'd made. And they'll be able to kind of hit the ground running, and they'll probably have a lot fewer questions. And the final time in which I think it is okay to invest is when you have stagnated growth / an income plateau and you are not able to identify the clear and obvious gap. Or you've tried to fix it and it's not worked. And I think this is okay because if you can identify that based on numbers, based on whatever metric you're tracking, maybe you should have seen the growth and you didn't. You've invested in the support and you still didn't see the result. If that becomes a kind of common experience, it is at that point I would recommend investing in someone who's going to be able to help you with your identity and or your money mindset. Because at that point, I do think there's probably something going on underneath where you are. This is obviously one kind of small area of money mindset, potentially keeping yourself safe. I know that that's been mine. I almost feel like if I earn too much money, I'll rock the boat. Like I'll be unrelatable. I don't want to massively out earn my partner and things like that. Like I have my own things around where my income level feels safe for me. And that is obviously something to work on. But I had a session with a money coach to help me realize that I had hit this, like I said last year, 5K months every single month. And I was like, what? Why? And I was like, I have projected seeing this growth and I've invested in the things to help me see that growth and I'm not seeing the growth. And I work with another money coach who focuses more on sales and money mindset. And yeah, they were like, I think it's this. And like, obviously we had like a session, there was a questionnaire and they were like, I think you are scared of rocking the boat if you earn too much money. And I was like, shit, you're right. It's so funny. Sometimes like it's that thing of like, we just need to see things from a different lens. So yeah, I do think it is right. And I think finances permitted at that point, I probably would have invested in either her as a money coach, like more long-term, or an identity coach. A lot of you guys know one of my business BFFs is Leanne Sear. She is the identity success, big deal identity coach. So I basically just need to like chat to Leanne more, is what I've learned. Yeah, that is my experience with overinvesting in my business, the things in which I was telling myself, and then going into this year, what I'm doing. So the main thing is not putting anything on a credit card. I'm like I say, I have nothing against debt. I think it's a tool. You can like use it. I think use of it has to be intentional. And I think when we have these clear things of like, okay, I know I'm investing for the right reasons, then of course it is intentional. I'm human. You're human. We're all human. So yeah, for me, the rules this year are just no adding to debt. We're just paying it. We're just getting rid of it. And if I do invest in something, obviously it has to fit within my cash flow. I have to identify a clear and obvious gap that it is addressing. And to do that, I'm going to talk it out with someone that isn't just going to hype me up. I don't think this year, based on projections and what I'm doing, I will need to increase my capacity anyway. So I don't think that's what I'm going to do. But if I do recognize stagnated growth / I've already have, and basically what I'm doing is chatting with Leanne more. And I'm very lucky that I'm able to do that, talking to someone who is a specialist in big deal identity and owning, getting yourself out there, breaking through the uncomfortable, comfortable zone. I hope you have found this useful. I won't lie, there is part of me that is like, wow, I'm going to get cancelled. People are no longer going to work with me because they'll know that I'm a fraud. Honestly, these things are loud in my head right now. I think I could probably cry if I wanted to, but I want to be really honest. I do want to have like the integrity and being like, look, I'm not perfect. I know a lot. I'm really good at helping people. I have a system that works. My problem is my own brain and what I tell myself and what I convince myself of. But now I have that extra knowledge and skills and experience to pass on to my clients. I'm also always learning from my clients. It's not just, coaching is a two-way street. Okay. So yes, I'm going to help you and I'm coming to you with like, this is the, structure, and I can help you identify certain things within your money mindset. But not only have I done a lot of research and read a lot of books and got a lot of qualifications, I've also lived it and I'm still living it. I always talk about, and this is the last thing I'll say because I'm just rambling now, but I like to tell my clients that I had been doing this for 5 years, and last year, so in my 5th year of doing money work, I recognized a pattern within, I recognized a pattern of how I manage money. And I was like, oh my God, I go into fuck it mentality when I don't think I can achieve my goals because I tell myself I don't have enough money to achieve my goals. And I'm like, well, no, Emily, you don't have £50,000 right now. to achieve all of these, 10 goals, but you are actively working towards them. And so I literally just had to start mapping out how I was going to hit a goal so that I knew, okay, this is how you're going to hit the goal. And as soon as my brain could see that, I was like, oh, okay, I'm chill and calm. I didn't need to go into fuck it mode anymore because I was like, well, yeah, I'm going to hit it, rather than, oh, I'm never going to hit it. So it was really interesting that just 5 years in, I clicked. Like, there are things that are so obvious, and like, as soon as you start doing this work, you'll be like, oh my God, that's why I do this. But also, the great thing about this work is that in years to come, you'll be like, oh, I'm doing the thing again. And we can spot it and we can identify it in myself, like this with this money, and like telling myself about how much I'm going to earn when I don't really have the evidence of that yet. We live and we learn. So yeah, I hope this has been useful. And yeah, I'll speak to you soon. Bye.